To the official closing of the Civil Society Public Policy Training. Before we get into the program, I'd like to ask you to kindly stand as we start by having a moment of silence for Zanita. Thank you. I would like to call our first speaker, who is part of the consulting team, the very energetic and passionate Deborah Nurse, who's going to give us a brief overview of the training program.
Most of you know us, and just to introduce for the sake of our specially invited guests that we have here, Gordon Floyd, Cassandra, and myself. Gordon over there. Cassandra Alves and myself, we conducted the training. Unfortunately, Cassandra's not here because she had another engagement. The training was really a second component to of a larger project. The larger project has or had a research element, has a training component, and a training of trainers. In the research component had two phases. Phase one, or two elements. The first element dealt with a baseline study, and the second element dealt with a mapping study. The mapping study and the baseline study were really to get were inputs into the training. So that's really was our data gathering phase. During the baseline study, it was really us understanding what's the lay of the land, what's the understanding of the GEF members in terms of how you conduct public policy advocacy. And the mapping study looked at the decision-making process in Guyana, because public policy involves an understanding of the decision-making process. So those phases led into the training. The training we had, it was in two phases. We had part one and part two. It was over 5 days. Part one was a month ago. Part two was finished earlier today at 12 p.m. And the focus of the part one was really understanding the context of public policy and understanding the context of public policy advocacy. Part one ended with an assignment, and I must say everyone actively participated in the assignment. They had the assignment to do over the break, and it was excellent in terms of the reports that we got from the assignment. The assignment focused, we worked in teams, and each team worked on an issue that they thought was important. And there were 4 issues that I just want to highlight. One team worked on inputs to the gender-based policy. I think we're all aware that Guyana is in the process of developing a gender-based policy, hoping to have that policy finalized by April next year. So one team worked on issues that should be part of that gender-based policy. The other team worked on medical access, increasing medical access for indigenous persons and persons living in the hinterland communities. Third team worked on the amendment of the Protection Against Discrimination Act to include sexual orientation and gender identity. And the act already exists, but the act does not speak specifically to, doesn't include gender identity or sexual orientation. And one team thought that that was an important public policy issue that we needed to work on. Another team worked on repealing the sodomy and cross-dressing laws. How do we go about that and have that as a public policy issue? So those were 4 issues that we worked on, and it was a very hands-on training experience. Those are issues that they started with in the first training assignment and went right through to the second training assignment. The second training assignment focused on how do we frame or ask? And by ask, we mean how do we frame the public policy issue that we are interested in? So during the assignment, they met with parliamentarians, they met with key decision makers to understand how the decision makers were thinking, how the decision makers viewed our particular issue. I think we were sort of working around a quote from Cicero saying that if you want to convince that someone, you have to be able to understand how they think. You have to be able to read their thoughts. You have to be able to think like them. So that was what phase one of the training was concentrated on, and certainly the assignment really was dealt with that. So that led that was an input into the second phase, and the second phase of the training worked on developing an advocacy campaign. What is the strategic thinking around an advocacy campaign, and what's the tactical thinking around an advocacy campaign? So we took those 4 issues, we did a strategic inquiry, we understood how the decision makers thought about those issues. What's the evidence we have in the country around these issues? Because one of the things that was important that is important in public policy advocacy is what we call evidence-based advocacy. Advocacy not just on anecdotal information, but advocacy based on evidence and hard evidence. And a lot of time was spent on how do we collect that data, what data is important, what data should we be concentrating on. So that was that in an overview, and hopefully a big enough nutshell, so persons who were not part of the training was sort of what we focus on for our training. And I must say that the training exercise was a two-way experience, a two-way learning experience. Gordon, Cassandra, and I, we learned as much as we were able to share. We were really excited. Actually, Gordon was visibly moved this afternoon when he was wrapping up in terms of the depth of knowledge that came in and the sort of learning and transformation that we saw occurring during the training process. So we just want to thank SASAD for this opportunity for the training and to be able to engage in this training. And we also wanted to thank the EU for the funding and the support that they have given to SASAD and to GEF and members of the organizations working with vulnerable communities. Thank you.